Sup? Alright, so I know I made a Fast and the Furious video last week, but you know what? I need the views. We're gonna ride this ship till it sinks. It also gives me an opportunity to bring back one of my most popular series, in fact the one that actually put me on the map in general, the Makes No Sense series.
I'm back, baby!
You know, I went into this thinking that it'd probably be too short of a video to upload because, you know, it's all a real world movie. But, you know, even back then in 2001 when there was no good CGI, they somehow made a way to fill it with BS. Before I start the video, I just want to clarify that I am, in fact, a very big fan of the Fast and Furious series. Love them to death. That said, I still love to point out the flaws in them. A, because I love cars, and B, because I'm that annoying guy that points out the physics in every action movie that nobody likes, so he goes home by himself at night and cries himself to sleep. It's a great life. Also, while I do my research before publishing any of these videos, there is a chance that some of my information may be off. So if you see anything that might be off with the information, or if you just want to say a really nice message to me, that works too. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. Small channel, I like reading all of that. If you could subscribe too, that'd be great. So without further ado, let's get into it right after this intro. Here's a little recap of the story. Brian is an undercover cop meant to take Dom Toretto down after he repeatedly robs semi-trucks. He races Toretto and eventually saves him from the cops. Unfortunately, they get pulled over by a gang who tells them to screw off out of their territory and they shoot up Brian's car. Through all of this, he earns Dom's trust, who lets Brian become a part of the family. They bond together and eventually go to this thing Dom made called Race Wars, which is basically just a drag strip. Also, that title didn't age well. One of Dom's friends, Jesse, loses a race and refuses to give up his car. This ticks off the dude who won, who is unfortunately the leader of the gang from before. Dom walks off with his crew to rob another semi-truck, but Brian wants to protect him from getting shot with the help of reluctant Mia. Job gets botched, Brian saves them, and Dom runs off. Brian tries to make an arrest, but not before the gang does a drive-by on Jesse, killing him. Both Brian and Dom give chase, and eventually the two have one final drag race where Dom crashes and Brian lets him get away. I know that's not a perfect summary, but let's face it, the Fast and Furious series was never really known for their amazing storytelling, and everyone's seen the movie at this point, let's be honest. Alright, so the first scene I want to discuss is that one old trailer scene with the three black Honda Civics. Now, while I do appreciate the intelligence of using an average everyday car to blend in with the crowd, I personally feel this completely goes out of the window with the use of underglow, especially lime green underglow. Not only is it tacky, like even in 2001, it also definitely makes your car stand out in the crowd. To be honest, I'm pretty sure the only reason this was put in was so the viewer could track the cars in the night better, but I feel like they could have just had the same effect with the rear lights and headlights. I feel like the underglow wasn't really needed. But you know, that's a very small part of this. Let's move on to the bigger part. You know the part I'm talking about. Now, I've worked in my grandfather's truck painting business at many different times in my life. I can tell you right now, it is almost impossible to get most cars to fit under a semi-truck. The clearance underneath a semi-truck is roughly in between 20 inches to 30 inches, or roughly between 50 centimeters and 76 centimeters. If your car's under those heights, you might have a chance to make it through, but unless you're a really low sports car or a Slam Miata, you don't have a chance. You're never going to fit a 2001 Honda Civic, which is roughly 50 to 52 inches tall, or between 123 centimeters and 132 centimeters. That leaves the question, how did they actually do it for the movie? Well, it's actually pretty simple. They put a lift kit on it. Now, my next big gripe with the Fast and Furious series is something that every single car person thought when they were a kid, seeing this movie for the first time. When I was a kid, I was pumped to go to car meets. I thought there were gonna be girls dancing, partying, and super high horsepower cars. Sorry to crash your dreams, but car meets aren't like that. Like at all. In fact, 9 times out of 10, the car meets I go to is a bunch of younger guys asking each other to rev their engines. There's usually not a ton of street racing except for when everyone's leaving, and it's not like as big as they have it in the movie. And if there is a girl there, she's usually just interested in the cars and really hoping that none of the weirdos at the car meet ask her out because she really just wants to see the cars. And then she gets asked out anyway and leaves because it's awkward. Now, granted, there are some outliers. For example, the local monthly car show in my town is full of vendors selling stuff and lowriders and muscle cars and tuner cars and music. If you've seen the movie, you'll notice this is a lot more like the Race Wars section, which is actually pretty accurate to how car meets go. Besides the girls doing wet t-shirt competitions everywhere. That doesn't happen. At least not the car meets I go to. am I not cool enough for those car meets? To be truthful, most car guys want to think they're like Dom Toretto, but in reality, they're just Jesse. You know, the one guy that's kind of quiet, a little bit weird, and just loves cars.
This will decimate all after you put about 15 grand in it or more if we have to. Overnight parts from Japan.
We'll put it on my tab at Harry's.
Yes!
I should know. I'm Jesse. Another problem I have is also the main location for street racing. Before you all attack me, yes, street racing does happen in the city. However, it's usually the teenagers that just got their cars or just basic light-to-light stuff. But if we're talking big street racing, like the level of Dom Toretto, which, granted, still not very realistic, but let's use it for this example. If you're talking big street racing, it's much more commonplace in the roads near the outskirts of town, where there's a lot less traffic and it's also a lot further from cops. They also like to stay near jurisdictional borders, as it's a little bit easier to get away from the cops when they do come. Mom, don't ask me how I know that. Also, these movies made it seem like these street racers are all hardened criminals that are willing to bet their car and thousands of dollars every few nights on a win. In reality, the average street racer is in between the ages of 17 and 24. They don't want to hurt anybody, they don't want to cause any trouble, they're just out there to have fun. That's why they're so far out there, usually. And despite what Fast and Furious will teach you, most of the time they won't bet their cars. Think about it. This is a machine that you've invested thousands of dollars into. At that age, it's more often than not their only car. And no matter how fast your car is, something as simple as a dog in the road or a really pointy rock can completely end your run because, let's face it, this is not a controlled environment like a track. You'd have to be dumb to completely bet everything on a road that's not even meant for racing. It just wouldn't make sense to put that much on the line over something that could change on a dime. It does happen, but not very often.
3, 2, 1, go.
Now to talk about that first race, there is so much wrong with this. The flames coming out of the tailpipes. That's impossible. Okay, so yes, flames can come out of the exhaust, especially by engines with forced induction. You can actually briefly experience this yourself by putting your pedal to the metal and then suddenly jumping off of it. See, to make flames, you need two things: a very hot exhaust header and unspent fuel. If you suddenly go from full throttle to no throttle, a little bit of excess fuel will hit the exhaust pipe. The heat from this exhaust pipe will cause combustion. Since the combustion has nowhere else to go, it will come out of the tailpipe and voila, you have flames. However, they won't sound like an afterburner from a jet, and they won't have a long flame trail like that either. Instead, they'll actually sound closer to gunshots, and they're a lot more common in turbocharged cars than anything else.
911, what is your emergency? I hear shots! Okay, ma'am, calm down. What kind of shots?
However, there actually is a way to make flames come out of your exhaust like in the movie. What you need is a flamethrower kit. The kit comes with a control module that temporarily stops your car's ignition, preventing it from burning fuel. This fuel is sent to the exhaust header and out the pipe, where an extra spark plug is located about 6 inches from the exhaust tip. This spark plug ignites the excess fuel, and then you can get an even bigger flame than if you had a boosted car. It's probably one of the things that racers do that's actually pretty cool. I actually considered getting this for my muscle car. They'll roughly cost you between $100 and $200, depending if you have a dual pipe system or a single pipe system. Now, onto the actual race. I was actually pretty impressed that they thought to add a multi-stage nitrous kit. How impressed I was then dashed when I saw they have no idea how nitrous kit works at all. I actually go into a lot of detail of how nitrous works in this video up here. I think you guys would really enjoy it. Please consider checking that out. For those of you that don't know, a multi-stage kit gives you part of the boost first and the full boost about a second later. Honestly, it feels like they just looked up the parts to a nitrous kit and gave their own definitions and called it a day. They didn't do their research at all. In the movie, a multi-stage nitrous system seems to work by giving your car a boost per stage. The more stages you have, the more boost you have. This is 100% not correct at all. As I stated earlier, the nitrous stage system gives you part of the boost at stage 1, another part at stage 2, and the full boost at stage 3. This can change depending on how many stages you have. Also, I also found it hilarious because if you listen to the dialogue in the movie, he says it's just 100 shot of nitrous. That's not that much. It's not so much that you should be blowing the floor panels off your car. That's for sure. 100 shot of horsepower is just 100 horsepower. Don't get me wrong, you feel it. But it's not gonna have that effect unless your engine is really bad. Of course, this is, has a little bit to do with the engines. If you have a V8, it can probably handle more horsepower than, say, a 4-cylinder. To be honest, you could probably add that much horsepower to any stock car and not blow the engine. And no, it'll never warp your vision. You won't go in some other speed dimension. If that was the case, then no one would use nitrous because it'd be so terrifying to enter another dimension while you're racing. Because you wouldn't be able to see where you're going.
You're lucky that 100-shot of NOS didn't blow the welds on the intake.
One more thing before I get off the topic of nitrous. It's actually non-explosive. It's a problem that most of the Fast and Furious movies have when they use nitrous as a bomb. You can't use nitrous that way. Nitrous is an oxidizer, which means it adds more oxygen when it is split up, and that's only when it is almost 600 degrees Fahrenheit or 315.5 degrees Celsius. Basically, it adds more oxygen to the fire. It may make the flame a little bigger, but it won't make the flame explode. Even so, the bottles are tested to make sure they can withstand further than that temperature, so likely the heat would have to be even higher. So when you see the car explode in the first Fast and the Furious, that's definitely more likely to be the gas that's blowing it up, not the nitrous as Dom was yelling. A lot of these tropes repeat throughout the movie, and it actually keeps it consistent, so for the rest of the movie after that first race, everything seemed to make sense as long as you followed the rules of that universe. So that actually leads us pretty close to the end before I say the last problem I have with this movie. That final crash with the semi-truck. Yeah, Dom's dead. According to Gizmodo, a head-on collision at 80 miles per hour has an almost 100% fatality rate. Dom was probably going almost twice that. And yeah, he has a roll cage, but let's face it, old cars like that, they don't even have airbags. I drive one. They're not safe cars to be in. The car should have been completely shredded and Dom would be nothing more than a red splash on the pavement. Every single bone in his body would be crushed to smithereens, and he'd almost immediately go into shock. Dom's not getting away from this one. And so there you have it, almost every single way they messed up in the first Fast and the Furious movie. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I also hope that you guys will consider subscribing or liking the video, commenting, all that jazz. Turn on the bell too, the bells. Please love me. I post car videos just like this every single week. And I think you guys really enjoyed if you check it out. Thank you again so much for clicking on the video and watching. If you made it to the end, you're an all-star. I hope you have a great day. Peace.